Qing's Prose Theory of Sacrifice, Layman's Philosophy, Part 2. Sacrifice means to kill the animals that are put on the altar for God. No animal is willing to climb onto the altar obediently and surrender its life as a tool for others to seek blessings. This is an ineffective feature of livestock, which makes it very troublesome for those who take advantage of it. There are a few soft-hearted people who can't stand the whining, and even have to consider whether to trade sheep for cattle before doing so. It's really not fun enough. But even so, there is nothing you can do about it, because it is a beast after all. It only knows the desire for life, and does not understand the value of death. It loves the body but not the spirit. It is impossible to reason with it. If you want to eat its meat, it is far easier to deal with this human being who is known as the spirit of all creatures, than to force him to kill someone by showing a fierce look like a butcher, because the word sacrifice is already a strange and beautiful term in human ears. There are many martyrs who have sacrificed their lives for fame, often despite the hard work of their parents to raise their bodies. For the words glory, greatness, and other words, he went to the altar meeting, gritting his teeth and trying to endure the pain of death. This is called automatic sacrifice. So, he was finished. Finished forever. The person who used it was really benefited at that time. Not only could he always hide his vicious butcher appearance, but he also had the reputation of being an adult. His spirit is immortal. They proudly looked at the sacrifice and nodded in admiration. Of course, the people surrounding the altar would also admire their cleverness. Everyone echoed your words while looking at the body of the sacrifice. Praise his spirit. How brave you are to sacrifice your life for righteousness. Seek benevolence, and get benevolence. Why regret death? If there is one who is good at poetry, you might as well write a few poems, such as Qing and Wulu, to praise the purity of his color. The fatness of its meat can be regarded as worthy of the painstaking efforts of others in making sacrifices, because it can be immortalized from now on. Afterwards, after discussing the merits with the sacrificer and declaring rewards, everyone divides the meat and disperses. Sitting high on the altar, the honorable gods in the world only have an empty name of enjoyment, and in theory they should repay the piety of these sacrificers. What force in the universe encourages people to make automatic sacrifices? I doubt. It is said that in China, the first person who did not hesitate to sacrifice his body for livestock was Nantang. Lu's Spring and Autumn Annals records, the Yin Shang dynasty conquered the Jia dynasty, and there was no rain for 5 years. Tang Nai prayed in the mulberry forest with his body, cut his hair, and cut off his claws, thinking that he had sacrificed himself. This kind of claw-cutting hairdress the trick of sacrifice doesn't seem too difficult, because if this is the case, if the Dragon King of the Four Seas really feels sorry for it and immediately spreads the clouds, then the living sacrifice will only get wet when he rolls off the altar, and his yellow robe will be wet. When he returns home, he will not be happy to see that the water tank is full. Let me put it another way, if your request does not work, it is just a waste of time. The more you cut your hair, the faster it will grow. This is the sacrifice calculation and limitation of a wise man. Tangjin deserves to be the founding leader of the Yin and Shang generation. Since then, sacrifice has become the mantra of ordinary people, sacrificing property, sacrificing reputation, sacrificing love, etc. It seems that if a person is willing to sacrifice everything, it is good. And if he is not willing to sacrifice everything, it is evil. Sacrifice has gone beyond beautiful words and become a noble term in morality. Zhen Zhenshi raised these beasts of the ancestral temple. I say it doesn't matter if a person makes sacrifices, but the cost of sacrifice must be calculated. I remember that my mother often told me a story when I was a child. She said that there was a woman in a neighboring village who was seriously ill but still conscious. She heard her youngest son yelling for food. No one else was in the room at the time, so she struggled. She used her last strength to get food for her beloved son, but she fell to the ground and died before the thing could catch her. Villages near and far admired her sacrificial spirit. My mother also praised hers, of course, but every time I heard this story, I always felt uncomfortable in my childish heart. Now I have found out the reason for this discomfort, which is the price of sacrifice. After all, I can't get rid of the Philistine smell. I don't know what it was that her young son was clamoring to eat at that time. If it doesn't matter whether he eats this kind of thing or not, then isn't her rest an unnecessary sacrifice that harms herself and others? If this thing is actually an omnivore that has eaten a bad belly, then even if you catch it by chance, it will be an act of sending others to harm yourself, even if it is not an omnivorous diet, but necessary food such as rice, tea, and water. The child will not be killed immediately if he gets it back or never gets it. So why risk his life to risk death? Sacrifice for love is touching, but avoiding sacrifice for love is more reasonable. Therefore, I hope that no matter who you are, you must understand this point. That is, sacrifice is the result of a last resort. Sacrifice should not be made lightly unless it is absolutely necessary. This is true for others, and the same is true for yourself. When Guanzhong saw that Yuji was dead, he did not hesitate to jump on the prison carriage to assist Duke Wan and the 9 princes, and bring peace to the world. How is its value compared to Zhao Hu, who committed suicide on the steps? Yan Ying refused to die because the king was not destined to die in the country, and he was also the only one in his opinion. Those who do nothing to benefit the world at all are of course extremely selfish and hateful. But if they do not ask whether a single cent can help the world and just sacrifice themselves, so that all their own hair is gone and their excrement cannot come out, then it's just that his aspirations are deplorable. I feel sorry for his ambition, so I can't bear to expose his stupidity. This is why we treat others with generosity. It's no longer possible to save people from the well, let alone those who are already dead and cannot be saved. How about sacrificing your precious life in vain to sacrifice your late emperor, your husband, and all your worthless institutional ideas? What do we mean? Loyal ministers do not necessarily have to die with literary remonstrances. To be considered loyal, a loyal minister must die in battle. Only if the remonstrances are well written, the emperor will gladly accept them, and the rewards will be generous. The item is ideal. In other words, making small sacrifices with high costs, or gaining benefits without sacrificing, is the most praiseworthy action. If you have no choice but to seek the next best thing, then the sacrifice must be justified. As filial daughters, they traveled around the capital to write a letter to save their father. In the Han Dynasty, corporal punishment was practiced. This attempt was worth it. However, Kaui did not hesitate to jump into the river to seek for her father's body. Although the gods tacitly believed, she ended up with a swollen corpse on her back. Come, it would be too uneconomical. Let's imagine what if the gods and ghosts were not working that day, and we couldn't find corpses in the haystack. Any action that is truly profitable, and any conscious person should not do anything that is clearly of no benefit, but cannot avoid sacrifice. Many people are embarrassed to say that the cause of death was due to recklessness or stupidity, so they have to try their best to come up with some excuses to cover up and say it was theirs. Loss of life is due to love, indignation, compassion, etc. It seems that these actions regarding temperament do not need to be measured by the standards of rational common sense. As everyone knows, what is praiseworthy about human behavior lies in its reasonableness. Whether it is reasonable or not is a matter of right and wrong. If it is true. What is true must be good, and what is true must be beautiful. Apart from this, there is no such thing as love or compassion. They are all products of rational common sense. From the time we were born as babies, we, like other animals, rely only on the urge to live and have no other desire than to satisfy our own appetite. We only know how to suck the breast, regardless of whether the breast belongs to the mother or whether it was born on the breast of the wet nurse. If we can say that newborn babies also have a so-called love in their nature, then the objects of their love must be their own food, milk, and the source of milk, breasts, and by extension, the pair of plump breasts. Women, if the mother does not breastfeed on her own, the baby will not know how to love the mother. The so-called love between parents and children is nothing more than a product of common sense. As for how to love the Dharma, there are also various ways. The Chinese considered gathering together as a treason, while the Xiongnu regarded the married mother as a treason. Needless to say, he confessed to his son's duty and sacrificed Zhao Zhen's life for this purpose. The strange thing is that people don't know the rationality of courtship. They only ask whether they are cute or not, and regard habits as their nature. Everyone sticks to it and refuses to relax. Little do they know that this attitude of following the rules and refusing to seek the truth is just doing it. And those who do it must do it. Patients are so stubborn. They still laugh when they are unwilling to work hard to seek the truth. But they are very energetic when they obstruct others from seeking the truth. Therefore, many tragedies have been added to the history of mankind out of thin air. As the proverb goes, know yourself and your enemy, and you will be victorious in every battle. The reason why we humans have become the overlords on the earth is not because we have developed compassion and are willing to sacrifice ourselves for others. On the contrary, it is precisely because we are self-interested and good at using others to sacrifice for yourself. Cats do not hunt mice for humans, bees do not make honey for humans, and hens do not lay eggs for humans. It is just because they are weak compared to humans in terms of ability, so we feel that they are incompetent. Everyone has the obligation to sacrifice everything for us. We don't think that using a cat's mouth and claws means that the employer is squeezing workers. Nor do we think that taking honey and eggs, etc., are all acts of banditry. When it comes to criminal law, it is a crime of undermining the order of the universe. It's just for everyone. They all consider themselves the king of all things, and their natural kingship has the obligation to make all living beings sacrifice for us. If there is something that slightly conflicts with their interests, we have the responsibility to take their lives, just like the rats that chew on debris, the locusts that damage rice ears, and the tigers and wolves that come out to bite people, etc. We are all happy to die and fear that they will die in a miserable way. Who says that compassion treats people and things equally? Those who love me want to live. Those who do not benefit me want to die. If someone insists that self-sacrifice is a virtue, no matter the object, talk about love and compassion to mice and locusts regardless of the cost. Come on. Destroy things to feed rats, leave rice to feed locusts, and devote yourself to feeding tigers and wolves. Isn't this considered crazy by others? There will never be such a fool in the world who is willing to sacrifice for rats, locusts, and other things that are harmful to oneself. There has never been before. There is not now, and there will never be in the future. To be honest, people are not only unwilling to make sacrifices for things they don't love, but they are occasionally willing to sacrifice some small benefits for things they love, and they are only willing to do so in the hope that they can gain greater rewards for their small sacrifices. Tried. Human beings all have business geniuses, and there is no one who does not invest for profit. If he really loses money and does not benefit at all, it is because of his lack of knowledge, and his willingness to sacrifice is his excuse. A child who does not know the danger of fire touches a lamp and burns his fingers is said to have sacrificed himself in order to explore the light of the universe. This phenomenon is the best metaphor for all automatic sacrifices. True sacrifice is necessary, so we should not praise sacrifice but praise the avoidance of sacrifice.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.